Las cosas buenas llegan de 3 en 3, como mi SUV de 3 filas que lleva a mis 3 hijos a 3 prácticas deportivas en 3 partes distintas de la ciudad. Por suerte, cargo mi gasolina Premium Synergy Supreme Plus en las estaciones Exxon y Mobil. Mantiene mi motor 3 veces más limpio y ahorra gasolina por más millas. Porque tan pronto como termina la temporada, comienza la siguiente.
Sigue adelante. Encuentra una estación en Exxon.com. Gasolina Synergy Supreme Plus en comparación con la gasolina Synergy regular en motores de inyección de combustible. Los beneficios se basan en el uso continuo y podrían variar.
Listen closely. That's not just paint rolling on a wall. It's artistry. A master painter carefully applying Benjamin Moore Regal Select eggshell with deftly executed strokes. The roller, lightly cradled in his hands, applying just the right amount of paint. It's like hearing poetry in motion. Benjamin Moore, see the love.
It's the Larry Kudlow Show. Free market prosperity starts here. Now, here's Larry Kudlow.
Let's talk about the Federal Reserve going political, giving Kamala Harris a big 50 basis point gift. For all these agencies, we're talking about the Secret Service, the FBI, the intelligence agencies, top of the agencies, all run by liberals. It's really something. Trying to help Kamala. Now we got the Fed, supposedly independent. It's not so independent. Let's talk to John Carney, Breitbart news editor for economics and finance and co-author of the Breitbart Business Digest at the Daily. You got to read this thing. It's terrific. John, first of all, who was the first guy to say it was a gift to Kamala? Me.
It was. Those are your words, Larry.
Wednesday, when you all came on set. I mean, really, in the next segment, I'm going to have Conrad DeQuatros, who's one of the best numbers guy in the business, and he's going to show how the Fed has given up on data dependency. But this thing, John, Trump is properly pounding it on the campaign trail. I talked to him about it. What did I do? Wednesday or Thursday? I don't remember when. But anyway, what do you think about this story, and where's this headed?
So one of the things that I think is very interesting is that the media and the Democrats are talking out of both sides of their mouth on this. When Donald Trump complains that it was a political move, they say, he's interfering with the independence of the Fed. And yet, at the same time, you have a Washington Post story admitting that this is a big boon to Kamala Harris. And you have, they have Mark Zandi, who's he's a good economist, but he's a Democrat through and through at Moody's Analytics, saying that this is a economic tailwind for the Harris campaign.
Who is it, John? Was it Jeff Stein who wrote the piece in the Washington Post?
Yeah, it was Jeff Stein who wrote the Washington Post piece.
Yeah.
And they are admitting that, yes, this is meant to help Harris. It helps Harris. And yet when Donald Trump points that out, they say, oh, no, it's interference with the Fed, which is something they've been saying for the longest time. Larry, you were there. You remember Donald Trump said all along, I'm expressing my opinion about what the Fed should do, not dictating what they are going to do. And yet they screamed that it was, interference. But of course it wasn't. Elizabeth Warren, Sherrod Brown, they write open letters urging 75 basis points. Joe Biden says, I bet you they're going to cut by the end of the year. Guess what? His bet was right. So, talk about interfering with the independence of the Fed. If Donald Trump said it, they would freak out. It's a form of Trump derangement syndrome that anything Trump says is interference with the Fed. Anything the Fed does, no matter how helpful it is to Kamala, they say, no, it's not, except when they think they're talking among themselves and they admit, this definitely helped Kamala.
Fox Business News, Edward Lawrence, reporter, he's a very, very good reporter, asked Jay Powell if this had any political overtones. And Powell's answer was pure word salad. I mean, it was just pure word salad. He refused to answer the question, and I think that's very telling. And one other point, John, Mickey Bowman, who was a Trump appointee to the Fed, dissented. All right.
Yes.
It's the first dissent, and I don't know how you tell me how long But that irked Jay Powell when he was asked about it. You could see it. Well, everybody else said this, blah, 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 blah. But the fact that
he really wanted a unanimous committee to support him. She, I think, recognized it is the first time we've had dissents from Fed presidents who, they rotate in and off of the committee. But Fed governors vote in every committee. They're appointed for 14 years. So they're there. This is the first time, and it's very rare for a governor to dissent from the Fed chairman. And so this is the first time, I think, since 2005 that a Fed governor has dissented. And she said something very reasonable, which was, why are we doing 50? We could have done 25. I would have, frankly, gone even further. I see no reason on earth to do this except politics before the election. Why not wait?
The next meeting, as you've said, the next Fed meeting is the day after the election. So they could have waited 6 weeks. That's what they could have done. And then why? I mean, it's so clear that this was a political move. I mean, what's the impact going to be? Is there any impact of this boosting Kamala?
I think it prevents the stock market from, deteriorating. Is one, obviously, lower rates, easier financial conditions gives a boost to the stock market. I also think that it allows, and we saw Biden doing this on Thursday, the day after the Fed meeting, saying that this is a sign that inflation is no longer a problem. Remember, that's the biggest problem for Kamala Harris in this election is people are very upset with inflation. So what they want is for the Fed to be sending a message that inflation isn't a problem, that people don't need to think about inflation when they go into the election booth. But I don't think that's going to work. I mean, Donald Trump got this right when he said it's too late. Inflation is on people's minds. You can bring down the rate of inflation. And by the way, the rate of inflation is still well above the Fed target. But you can bring it down to 2.5%. But people aren't going to forget that their groceries are up 22%, that their car insurance is up 54%. That's not going away. And I think no matter, they may be trying to help Kamala, but I think that the actual help is going to be relatively limited.
Let me see. Was Scott Besson on with you Wednesday in the TV show? Because remember what he said was very interesting, that middle income people, working folks, and lower income people are hit the hardest by the cumulative rise of prices, which is like a tax on their wages. And that's not going to change. And Scott has been saying, I mean, he's a potential Treasury Secretary or, some high financial position if Mr. Trump should win. He's been saying all along that, in a sense, the middle and lower quintiles of the income standard, they're in a recession right now. They're the ones getting clobbered by the credit card rates and the mortgage rates and the drop in real wages. I mean, they're the ones that are getting killed. And that's part of Trump's working class coalition, it seems to me.
That's right. A lot of the things that you have very little flexibility on have gone up a lot. So again, car insurance is one of those things. You have to have car insurance. So you don't get, you don't get a choice about whether or not you have car insurance. You're legally mandated to have it. It's up 54% since Biden came into office. So that is squeezing everybody who owns a car. And I said this at the very beginning of this inflation episode. I wrote a Breitbart Business Digest column in which I said, in Joe Biden and Kamala Harris's America, the poor pay more. That is what has happened.
Right.
And Scott is absolutely right that it is crushing the people who can least afford to get hit. And look, the rich and the upper middle class at least have an offset. It still is bad for everybody, but there's an offset in that you've seen how if you own a house, your home price went up. If you own stocks, you've seen stocks go up. So there's an offset, but it's for people who aren't big asset owners. Those include young people, people with lower skills, people who've just had a harder time in life. Those are the people who've gotten hit the hardest by this giant explosion of inflation.
Sure, the top 5% in the stock market, whether they own the index, whatever they own, they've had a tremendous wealth effect. Wealth's gone up, and that's been their buffer from the inflation. I mean, middle-income people may own 401ks and IRAs, but not near to the extent, right? I mean, just the levels of income are too low. So you're right; they get hit the hardest. Well, anyway, we'll see how this plays out, John. We'll see you on the set of the TV show this week, folks. John Carney. You got to read Breitbart Business Digest. He runs that thing every single day. John, you spend a lot of time on that, don't you?
I do. We spend a lot of time. Frankly, it's been very rewarding because by focusing on this day in and day out, putting out this great product, it's actually made me better at figuring out what's going to happen to the economy. Because when you have to do it day after day, you look at all the numbers. Yes, it gives you a really good insight into how the economy is developing.
You guys should sell it. $200, sell it. Subscriptions. 1 million people who subscribe, you'll get rich. Alex Marlowe get rich. You can all get rich. I want you to get rich.
Thanks, Larry. I'll bring it up. It's a great idea. I think we should.
John Carney of Breitbart, everybody. Thanks, John. I'm Kudlow. We're going to take a quick break, and then my very dear friend Conrad DeQuatros, one of Wall Street's best economists, is going to tell us why the Fed's decision to cut by 50 departs from what they call data dependence, which really does imply politics. I'm Kudlow. Be right back.
This is the Larry Kudlow Show.